Welcome to the 60 Plus Podcast.
I'm Janet.
I'm Joe.
Hi.
But you stepped on my line there, Janet. How are you today, Janet?
I'm girl. I can't do that one again. I'm great. I'm very well, thank you.
You're-
And you?
I'm well, thank you.
Well, that is so nice to hear.
All right. So for new listeners, Janet is making fun of my predilection for good grammar.
These big words. It's too much for me.
Good grammar. So when someone says, "How are you?"
Straight talk here, all right?
The New Jersey is coming out. Well, I'm glad you're well.
Yes.
How's that?
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
And you're good.
I'm well, thank
You're doing
you.
well. Oh yeah.
I am.
Okay, good. Okay, so we got that out of the way.
We did
twice.
get that out of the way. I forget what I'm saying. Oh, no. What are we talking about today, Janet?
We're doing a myth buster. That's especially hard these days to say.
Why is that?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. We're going to bust a myth. What's the myth we're going to bust?
We're gonna bust a move. Yeah, so there's this whole myth that you're over 60, you get stuck in your ways, right? You're like in this routine and you're sort of stubborn about change. And the myth is that after 60, you're not very good at change. Like you don't change.
Or that you can't change.
Or you can't change. That's the myth.
All right.
And we're going to bust it.
Okay.
I mean, it's true that people do have different relationship with change. If you think about it, it's like a bell curve in the center. People are like, yeah, okay, maybe. I don't know. I don't love it. I don't hate it. And then at the tails, you have people who like thrive on change, like they're changing all the time. And then you have people on the other end who are very resistant to change and won't change. And if you ask them to, they were just like, no, I'm not going to. Where are you, do you think, on that?
Which end of the scale is change and which end of the scale is no change?
Well,
the left side is no change and the right side is change. I'm to the right of the height of the bell curve.
Yeah.
Kind of on that down slope where somewhat habit.
Like you're maybe like in the upper quartile or maybe not even.
Upper third.
Yeah.
Where a lot of it is not change. But there's a good bit of change there.
Yeah.
There's also a qualitative difference in some changes.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Changing from caffeinated to decaf might not be a big thing, but moving.
It would be for me.
Well, yeah, but you know what I'm saying. But moving to a new state would be a big change.
Or giving up coffee altogether.
Well, no, that's just insanity. You're talking crazy now.
I know, that would be crazy. But the point is, change and our relationship with change really doesn't have anything to do with age. So that's why this is a myth, that anybody can change at any time, at any age. And there is a pathway to that. And especially in our age group, there is a lot of change. People are retiring.
Sure.
People's lifestyles are changing.
Yes.
Their financial situations are changing. Maybe their status is changing. We've lived a long life. So the good news is we have a lot of wisdom. And
do we really?
Well, we like to think, don't tell anybody the real truth.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. So it doesn't really have to do anything with age. And in fact, we've come across an article about people who have made some major changes late in life and who have been very successful around that. And I think that this is a good way to, as an example, talk about that. I think you have a few. I have a few here. Julia Child. She didn't publish her first cookbook until she was 50 years old. And then it was after that she became a celebrity chef. There was an HBO show that's really good about her. I've been watching. It's excellent. But anyway, it was much later that she was inducted into the Culinary Institute of America's Hall of Fame, which she was the first woman. Talk about change and bucking a system, if you will.
What did you say?
Bucking a system. What did you? Okay, your turn. What do you got? Who do you got that's inspiration for us?
I've got Kitty Weston Nauer. You might not know who she is.
I don't, but I like her name.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of fun.
She's in her 70s. She's the oldest BMX bike racer in the country and still wins tournaments
Oh,
or
you're kidding
races.
me.
Yes, off-road bicycle races.
That's amazing.
And she didn't start until she was later in life.
Hmm. And she's still at it.
Well, according to this article, I don't know how old this
Yeah,
article
well,
is.
it's from, well, it's only a couple years old. It's from August 13th, 2020. It's not that old when you're talking about this timeless stuff here. So
Well,
she's in her 70s.
she's in
and
her. That's why I said she's
hopefully
in it.
she's still
Hopefully,
rolling.
Kitty's still pedaling.
Still rolling around.
But that's something that's physically demanding,
Right.
dangerous,
Yes.
and she's still at it.
Yeah.
At least she was
It's
4 years
no
ago. Kitty,
fear.
we hope you're still out there.
No fear, right? Well, that was the other one that we came across. I think you have it, where the guy was like he's in his 90s and he does yoga and he's not even humanly flexible because he's been doing it since he started in his mid 50s.
You have your own list of people. I have my list of people. Why are you?
Only because we're. Don't be so possessive, Joe.
You gave me the list. You put
I
the
did. Well, you can
highlighted
talk
it for me.
about it now.
His name is Tom Allen.
Yeah.
He's Britain's oldest yoga instructor who teaches at 90 years old.
Yeah.
Didn't start doing yoga until his mid 50s.
Yeah. I think I just said that, but I'm glad you clarified that up. But yeah, he's amazing. And also, again, back to yoga. Oh my gosh, how many times has that come up in our episodes about being an amazing thing to do for yourself at this age? But anyway,
Yoga.
So here's another one, Vera Wang.
Clothing designer.
Yeah, famous designer, right? One of the most famous today. She actually started in the fashion industry when she was in her 40s.
And that, I think most people start that quite young.
You're probably born wanting to do it. It's never too late to change careers, for instance. And actually, when you think about it, again, in our age group, this happens a lot because we retire and then we have another cause. And I think there's a couple of examples of that in our list here of people who have, I think you might have another one, Joe, over there.
I thought you were going to steal it.
Steal?
Well, appropriate.
Gosh.
Sorry for the big word again.
Oh, you are really, okay. You're cruising for a bruising.
Hubie Jones. I actually know something of Hubie Jones, but he was 69 years old when he founded the Boston Children's Chorus in 2003. Oh, God.
That was my attempt at being in the chorus.
Not referenced in this article, but I know someone who used to work for Hubie Jones.
Really?
And Hubie was, I believe, the head of the sociology department at Boston University.
Okay.
Not only did he do something completely different at 69 years old, it was completely out of his element.
Yeah.
He was a sociologist and decided to found a chorus.
Yeah.
So you can do things like that.
You can do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can do anything that you want.
I know a couple of people who,
yes,
in their 60s,
started a podcast. I heard about them.
Yes.
That must have been a big change.
It was kind of a change, yeah. I mean...
Yeah. For some of us, anyway.
For some of us.
Yeah. Toni Morrison?
I don't know Toni Morrison.
You don't know Toni Morrison?
I knew you were going to say that.
She
did not explode in the public eye until 1993 when she became the first African-American woman to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Oh, I knew she was an author.
And she was 62.
She was 62.
62.
They might be very driven people.
Yes.
But there's nothing special about them.
This is what we're going to talk about, right? Like, what are the factors? They had a vision, they had a passion, they had a purpose. And it kind of starts there. So when you think about, you don't have to be famous. You don't start famous. You might become famous, whatever. It's like, do you have...
Like podcast hosts.
What's your why? Famous. You know, we had a why when we started this. Or I felt like I did anyway. I don't know.
What
you
was
just
it?
Came along for the ride.
What was it?
Well, I wanted to share information. I wanted to build a community around this age group and be inspirational and be informational and have some fun and be happy about this time of our lives and not sweat the small stuff. And that's, gosh, we're almost coming up on a year, Joe.
I know.
Woo!
Yeah, in July, it'll be a year. This is episode 48, I
Yeah.
believe.
But you know what the big factor that really, I think, prevents people from change?
Fear,
Yes.
anxiety.
Anxiety, whatever it is.
We were talking before we started recording, and I recounted a story. I won't get into the whole story, but the anticipation of something, change included, is often worse than the actual experience.
Because we make it bigger. And that's what fear does, right? It always makes things bigger than they are. And I always say, like, fear is like a paper veil, it's like paper thin. It creates this barrier, but really you can push it aside so easily and quickly. I love this quote that I came across. We can't be afraid of change. You may feel very secure in the pond that you are in, but if you never venture out of it, you will never know that there is such thing as an ocean, a sea. And that's by C. Joy Bell,
Who's an author?
who's an author.
And I read somewhere it is the most quoted author on Goodreads.
Yeah, which is
stuff.
interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I think that that's a beautiful quote. There is, it's, we're humans, right? We're creatures of habit. There's naturally going to be some level of fear, perhaps, depending on where you are on that bell curve, right? Around change. So, what can we do to sort of overcome that? And there are ways, there are roadmaps to try and drive change in your life. So, whether change is forced upon you or whether you're trying to take control of and drive a change in your life, there are some basic principles that we can share today.
Before you do that, it's interesting that you mentioned habits.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my research, I came across something about habits. There are
Mm-hmm.
conscious habits and unconscious habits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe the myth arises because people of a certain age, like us,
Mm-hmm.
have had more time to develop habits.
Right.
More things are a habit. I know my morning ritual is, it's pretty much a habit.
Yeah.
I have my coffee. I sit in my chair. I have my coffee. I catch
Yeah.
up on the news.
Yeah.
I didn't do that when I was in my 20s. I mean,
Right.
every day was different.
Well, and that's not to say you can't change that habit, but
That's true.
sometimes there's comfort in habits, right?
Mhm.
And, I think that that's, do we want to get out of our comfort zone? Maybe at this time in our lives, it's just kind of nice to kick back and be comfortable. But, you can kick back as much as you want, and life's still going to toss you change. So you might not be in control of it. There's two types of change, change that we can't control and change that we're in control of. And how do you accept the change that you can't control and try to at least manage through it in a graceful way? And I think that that's the real trick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have some experience in change
Management.
management.
Just, in my past career. And, there were certain models that we used to try to drive organizational change. But honestly, I've also used these same concepts for personal change.
Okay.
I think they work.
So what are they?
Well, the first thing is you have a vision. What is your vision for change? Where are you headed? And, it was interesting because I was listening to a podcast the other day about the blue zones, and these are the places around the world where people are living longer. And there are certain aspects and commonalities and variables of why. And one of them is this idea of having a purpose in your life. And maybe, and I'm just spitballing here, when we get to this age and life changes, we retire, you sometimes hear people go, I don't know what I'm going to do, like, what's my purpose? And in fact, I think we had a podcast about this. And one of the things that we researched and we also heard our guests talk about was the big question is really, what do I want my life to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really a hard thing to sometimes reflect on. And so you can do these visioning exercises. What is it that you want in your life? Finding meaning in your life, this special purpose, if you will. And it kind of starts there that that there's something different And you have to sort of,
Outside of the pond that you're in.
right? And you have to sort of formulate what might that look like? What is it that I, want? That's step number one. And the second thing is, how big is the need for change? In other words, when we're thrown something where we're forced to change, talk about like a physical thing where all of a sudden you get a diagnosis and you're like, oh my God, I have to change my diet. I have to do this. I have to do that. The threat around not doing that change is bigger than the fear of the change. And so we're more apt to drive towards that when there's a big threat or a big opportunity for it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these smaller changes, it's like, oh, yeah, I can't, it's no big deal. Maybe we're not so successful. I mean, we did this when we talked about dry January, right? And the statistics around New Year's resolutions
Right,
and
right.
how often they're broken because they're usually not that big of a deal. There's no real threat, no real opportunity that's basically framed out that says, I've got this vision and here's why. So what's the why?
And you're keeping people from drinking.
Right. So,
I mean, it's like,
but I made it through dry January. It wasn't easy.
you did.
I did.
I don't think it was that
No,
difficult.
it wasn't really.
You got to do it next year?
I may do it like in July.
No.
Yeah.
Don't do it in July. We're going to have a celebration for our 1 year anniversary of the 60 Plus podcast. What are you going to
Okay.
drink? Cider? I mean, like
Yeah. Why not?
sparkling cider?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
We got to pop a champagne cork on the air to celebrate.
All right. Okay. Well, maybe August then. June's out. Too
Well,
late for June.
June is almost half over.
I can do it like from the full moon in June to the full moon in July.
Okay.
Arr.
What's the next step in change management?
So the next one is mobilizing commitment, right? Is one way to say it. Or
Sounds very corporate.
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
I'm
does.
going to try to soften that then. Understanding who around you needs to know. Who do you need to bring on this journey with you? What is my
All
vision?
right, to put it in corporate language, who are the stakeholders?
Yeah, the stakeholders. Do a stakeholder analysis. So, which basically means
Every time I've had a meeting in a corporate environment, that's the voice that I hear. Regardless, it's like Charlie Brown's parents talking to him. It's a wah, 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 yeah.
Let's talk about this in real talk here. Basically, if you're going to embark on a change, you want to be successful,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
And you're going to surround yourself with people who will support that change, right? Once you identify what it is that you need to do and why. And you're going to need certain things from them, maybe, that you're going to have to articulate and say, here's my vision. This is why I'm trying to drive this change. I need you to help me by whatever that XYZ is. So you're trying to get them to support you, commit. Now, when I did Dry January, I didn't do it alone. I had 7 friends I did it with, and we kept each other honest.
Did
A few
you?
of them dropped out, but I think there was like 4 of us that made it to the end.
All right.
And so the idea is to understand, okay, there may be all these tinier little changes that you're going to have to make to drive towards the bigger change, right? So who needs to be involved in that? And what do you need from them? And getting them their commitment and support.
So you have to recruit those.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to have the communication is key, right? You're going to have to try to have some kind of dialogue, which also implies that you are clear about what your intentions are so that you can build an action plan around them. And then you know who needs to be part of that.
All right.
Mm.
So continues the most corporate edition of the 60 Plus podcast.
Come on, Joe.
No, but it's true. You're translating these corporate kind of ideas into a personal life. It works.
Yeah.
All right. So you gather the team, you identify the stakeholders, you assign tasks,
No, no, you're just being silly because you don't have to say it that way, do
And
you?
what's the next step in change management?
Well, okay, so in that process, you may find some points, some barriers, some people who are resistant
I don't know anyone
to
that's
that.
resistant to change.
You don't?
No, I'm being very sarcastic. Almo-
A
al-
lot of people are,
Almost everyone I know is resistant to change,
especially if they don't see any benefit to it. There
like
goes
dry
go
January.
back to yeah, so go back to the threat and the opportunity, right?
Hmm.
If they don't buy into the vision, if they don't see the threat around it, they're not going to be supportive. So
Sure.
that could prevent you from being successful. So it really depends on how critical they are.
Hmm. Okay.
And it depends on how many people you need to mobilize for this.
Just, I'd like the record to reflect. Janet said mobilize. I didn't say that.
Let's hope that maybe this is thought provoking for some people who are facing change.
You were making fun of me for making it sound too corporate. So,
Yeah, well, remember too that again, we may not be trying to like out of the blue be like, okay, I'm going to wake up this morning and I'm going to make a change. This can be thrust upon us.
that's true.
So, what are the ways in which we can try and get some control back?
Well, you can adapt to change. You can resist change,
Yeah, but
but it's like resisting
that
the weather.
no, but there's this great line that I love: resist. Whatever you resist will persist. In
Okay.
other words,
Hmm.
if you don't give in to it and you try to fight it, it's going to persist.
Hmm.
You're not going to be able to let go. You're not going to be able to move on. You're not going to be able to make those positive changes that you need to make.
You've done your analysis, and
Oh,
no,
stop. Oh, wait. I know you can make a spreadsheet, Joe.
I could, I could.
Yeah. Now it sounds more appealing, huh?
It does. It sounds very appealing, actually. You've identified your network of people that are going to help you with this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you implement the change?
Well, you have to have an action plan, right? Yeah, because it's like intention, like, your goals, objectives, whatever, however you want to say it, what you intend to do. And then, without an action plan, it's, what do they say? It's just a wish.
Sure.
You really do have to say, okay, what are the things that have to happen in order
Hmm.
for me to accomplish this? And again, that gets back to, and who does that involve? What are the roles that these people around you might play and what are their responsibilities?
So it's kind of like a virtuous circle.
It is.
You get the people, you get the ideas, and the ideas help the people, and the people help the ideas.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful thing.
it is a beautiful thing. And then you just have to do it.
And then you just have to do it. And then you want to measure, are we moving towards wherever we're going? Right.
Hmm.
Because, celebrate small successes. One more day of sobriety. Being like rah rah with those people who were like, yeah, I didn't drink either. Yay. Like it. I know
Did you
it
really
sounds
have conversations like that?
well, no. Well, people ended up confessing when they're like, well, I kind of slipped. But there is this idea of measuring some kind of progress so that like some changes are bigger than others and they're going to take longer. And you've got to know like there's a positive trend line towards it. Like you're moving in the right direction.
Sure.
So there's some form of measurement, whether that's intuitive or if it's actually, digital, type of thing. So,
And there are all kinds of ways that people can change.
hmm
You can change jobs, you can move, you can change your wardrobe, you can change your diet. All of these things are
you can
changes
change your hairdo.
if you have enough hair to do that. Thanks for that. Uh, I think Cindy, in our last episode,
Yeah.
kind of put it very succinctly. Just keep moving.
Keep moving.
Keep moving.
Whatever you're moving towards, keep moving towards it.
Hmm.
This whole idea of focus and clarity. I think that that's really critical. Like, let me have some focus about what it is that I want in my life. And let me be clear with myself and with other people on how I'm going to get there and what that means and entails. Right. And then the last thing is making it last.
That might be the trickiest part.
Yeah. I think it is.
So if dry January were 40 days instead of 31 days,
Oh my God. No. I'm not sure I would have made it. No.
well, I mentioned to you this past weekend, I went on a much longer bike ride than I had thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And you were measuring the miles, I
I was
bet.
measuring the miles, and if it was 1 mile longer, I don't think I could have made it.
Right, exactly. Again, that's that end goal, right? You've got it in sight. And then if somebody moves the needle again, you're like, what?
Yeah.
I thought I arrived, right? But then also this idea of habits, you have to do something like 60 times, I think, to make a habit. And, you can strive for positive habits as well as bad habits, right? So
True.
that's all I have, Joe.
I guess the point is that there's no reason why barring any unforeseen kind of incapacities or whatever, people can't change
Right.
at any stage of life.
Right.
Small changes, big changes,
Right.
qualitatively significant changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we look at ourselves and be like, I'm too old to change or I'm too old to do something differently, it's not true.
I agree. Did we bust it?
We busted that myth.
Well, that's it for this episode of the 60 Plus podcast. Until next week, I'm Joe.
I'm Janet. Bye.